Hello, everyone. Welcome to Ike's Political Minutes. Today we will be simulating the 2024 Republican presidential primary in the first four states, more specifically. Now, there is one notable caveat. We will not be including Donald Trump. We will be assuming that he either dropped out or was convicted of a crime and had to spend jail time, or was even convicted of violating federal records law, which would therefore prohibit him from serving in any federal office. And in any case, the reason why we're doing this is because Donald Trump really does suck up all the oxygen in the room when it comes to the primary. There's not a lot of space for really anyone else to compete. So it would be fascinating to see really how this shake out without Donald Trump. And where I put here who I believe the major contenders would be, I understand there are more candidates, and this is also assuming that Glenn Youngkin and Mike Pence both jump in the race, as they are widely expected to do. And without further ado, let's start out with Iowa. Now, in Iowa, Ron DeSantis already has 25% of the vote locked down, and that's even going against Donald Trump. I'd say DeSantis wins Iowa pretty comfortably. I'd say he wins it with roughly 60% of the delegates. That's what I would say, which is double the amount he's polling against Trump with right now. So he wins Iowa, but then we have to go to the other candidates. I think that Mike Pence just isn't that liked. I mean, maybe he would get some evangelicals in Iowa, just that demographic, but I'd say he gets at most one or maybe two delegates there, 5%. And I actually think that Vivek Ramaswamy, though, he could do very well in Iowa because what you have to understand is that Iowans typically prefer the more young, upstart candidate who's more charismatic. That's why they voted for Barack Obama for an overwhelming margin, even as they later voted for Hillary Clinton by a wide margin in the New Hampshire primary. So I think that Ramaswamy would benefit greatly from that dynamic. And I think that the Haley might get some. Scott's a little more popular than Haley, so yeah, I would say that. And Glenn Youngkin just not getting that much momentum right out of the gate in Iowa, I don't think. New Hampshire, though, is where I think Glenn Youngkin would shine. I think that DeSantis would get New Hampshire. He would get it narrowly. Like, let's say he gets 50% of the delegates, because right here we can see in New Hampshire, DeSantis is polling slightly less than what he is in Iowa with Trump in the race. And Chris Sununu is taking up a fair amount of the vote there as well. And New Hampshire, as opposed to Iowa, they tend to favor the more establishment style candidates, people who are more of a proven product. And I think that Glenn Young, and I mean, you could say DeSantis is more of a proven product because he's been governor longer, but also Youngkin is more moderate, and that is something that New Hampshire voters also like. So I think that Youngkin would get the Chris Sununu vote. I don't think he's going to run, and I think it would be close. I'd say he gets 36% of the vote in New Hampshire. I think that Pence at this point drops out after his abysmal performance in Iowa. I think Ramaswamy gets some of the vote, but not a lot. It's coming up to be a two-man race between DeSantis and Youngkin, and I think that Haley and Scott don't really have much of a showing at all. So I think that after New Hampshire, Ramaswamy drops out. I think that Haley and Scott, even though they didn't get anything here, they'll probably be holding out for South Carolina. Moving over to Nevada, though, I think that DeSantis gets 44, 60% of the vote, or 52. I'll say that. And I think that Youngkin would get 32%, and I think Scott would actually get the remaining 16% because Nevada is a very diverse state demographically, and I think Scott would be able to appeal to that group of voters. And finally, I think that it comes down to South Carolina. South Carolina is a southern state, so I think that DeSantis and Youngkin would both get a fair amount of the delegate count. I would say 18% apiece. But I actually think that South Carolina would be Tim Scott's place to shine. I think that he and Nikki Haley would both fare well here, and I think this would be the final map, at least of the first four states, where yes, DeSantis wins narrowly the first three states, and then Tim Scott breaks out with the fourth, but South Carolina being the most contested, partly because there are two South Carolinians in the race for the Republican side. And overall, Scott and Youngkin would be tied as far as delegate count. DeSantis would be running away with it. It remains to see whether they would stick around for Super Tuesday. I think Ramaswamy might. Pence would drop out, most likely, and this would be the final map of the first four states. Thank you all for watching. Comment on suggestions below. Please subscribe and hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video, and I will see you all later.